Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. Please visit our website, cscatlanta.org, for a complete list of live and recorded events. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter to stay connected to all future programs.
All right, welcome. I'm so happy to be with you all today. Happy to see some new faces, happy to see some returning faces. So, as Lauren said, today we've got 3 recipes on the menu. In the order of operations, we're going to start with these quiche muffins. So, these muffins are not quite bready muffin-like, but they're not quite quiche-like. They're definitely a hybrid. And what I love about them is that unlike sometimes quiche or egg-based things, they don't always reheat well, but these reheat beautifully. Also, they freeze and reheat beautifully. Also, they freeze and you don't have to thaw them out before you reheat them. They go from the freezer to even the microwave. So one point I'll make about if you were to take these, freeze them, and put them in the microwave is that you're gonna wanna do what we call temper them in the microwave. I wouldn't put them on full blast for minutes. I've had success, depending on how frozen or unfrozen they've gotten, with 20-second intervals on the microwave. So when I did it just a couple days ago, I think it took me 3 20-second intervals to get it all the way down. Another thing I'd like to point out just in general about reheating food is that for food safety purposes, to make sure that your food is reheated to a safe level, you are looking for 165 degrees on anything you're reheating, right? So there's temperatures that you cook things to the first time that might be lower than that. But for reheating, no matter what it is, we're looking for 165. Yep. Right, so the question was about, is that because of bacteria? So it is because of bacteria. That's the point that we're gonna, because in the life cycle of a food between when you first prepare it and when you eat it, you wanna make sure that it's staying out of that temperature danger zone as much as possible where the bacteria grows more frequently. And so we wanna pass through that temperature danger zone, about 45 degrees to 135 degrees, as fast as we can. And we don't wanna do that too many times, right? And so getting it to 165 is just gonna make sure that the bacteria has been killed. Also, you know, it can be really complicated sometimes to remember, like, does this have chicken in it? Does this have beef in it? Does this have cheese in it? If you just go to 165 when you're reheating things. Now, that's from a food safety standpoint. From a quality standpoint, if you're not, like, you could get these to 165 in the microwave real fast, right? And you might end up with something that's kind of tough or, so when you're getting to that 165, depending on what you're making, right? If you're putting lasagna back in the oven, it's gonna be fine, right? Or back in a microwave. But something with a lot of eggs in it, eggs are sometimes tender little creatures and don't like to be reheated. So you just wanna go gentle is what we're doing. And the best way to know if you've gotten to 165 is an instant read thermometer. So if you don't have one of those, that's just a good thing to have in your kitchen in general. Okay. So after the muffin, we're gonna move on. We're gonna start our carrot and ginger soup. For those who are struggling with nausea, ginger can be really helpful for lots of folks in that regard. And so this is a nice, creamy, easy to swallow soup. Couple of modifications with this soup. If you wanted this to be creamy by using full fat, heavy cream, absolutely, it's gonna be delicious. If you want it to be creamy by using coconut milk because you don't want the dairy in it, that would be delicious. If you want it, if you're trying to avoid dairy or for whatever reason you need to have a soup that's lower in fat and higher in fiber, adding oats to a vegetable soup that's blended is just a really fun, interesting technique and has a nice, creates a nice creamy mouthfeel, and you get just a, couple more grams of fiber in there as well, which nobody is hurt by. Well, most nobody. We'll get into, if you've got other GI issues, that could be a problem. But again, it's flexible is the point I'm trying to make here. You can go in a lot of different directions. All right, and then finally we're gonna finish with our white winter salad. This is a chopped salad, and what I love about Oven's preheated. Just letting us know. Thank you, oven. What I love about a chopped salad is that they can be prepared in advance and they can hang out and get even a little bit better in the refrigerator sometimes. And so if you are preparing for going into a chemo cycle or treatment cycle and you want to try to get ahead, this is great. Or if you've got a day where you're feeling good and you've got more capacity and you're sort of paying it forward to yourself, all of these things, I wouldn't freeze the salad, but you can make it in advance. Soup freezes beautifully, muffins freeze beautifully. They all reheat really, really well. And then the salad, when I've got a batch of this in the salad, I will just chomp on it throughout the week, right? Sometimes I'll open up a can of tuna or something and eat with it, or throw some chickpeas at it, or, you know, fry an egg with it. All sorts of different directions you could go to make that more of a complete meal. Okay, so let's get down here and get started with our muffins. So this is super easy. Once you've gotten everything measured out in general, you're just gonna put it all together and mix it up. We love something that's so straightforward. And I'm gonna grab a spoon real quick. There we go. So I've got a cup of plain cottage cheese here. It could be low fat, it could be no fat, it could be full fat. You do you. I believe what this is actually low fat is what I happen to buy. Also got an ounce of Parmesan cheese. A word about measuring Parmesan cheese. The recipe says 3/4 of a cup. If you are grating it yourself with a microplane or a really fine grater, something like this, you're gonna end up with fluffier cheese. So the volume is gonna look higher or even be higher maybe than 3/4 of a cup, whereas if you're doing something like this, it gets more compact. I measured this to see that it was 1 ounce. If you have a scale and you wanna measure it, that's great. If you're not sure exactly, it doesn't matter that much. With a lot of baking recipes, you have to be very, very precise. If you have 1/2 cup of cheese or 3/4 of an ounce of cheese or 1.5 ounces of cheese, it's not gonna make a big difference here. So don't stress about that. But just know, when I was grating this cheese and I was measuring it, I was like, this looks like way more than 3/4 of a cup, and it's because of the type of grater I used. All right, so we're gonna put most of this in here. We're gonna save a little bit to throw on top at the end so that you have a little extra cheesy bit on top. Then we've got 1/4 cup of flour. I've also gone in and added my teaspoon of baking powder and my 1/2 teaspoon of salt, so that's in here as well. All right, and then almond meal or almond flour. The first time I made these, I did not have almond flour, but I had hazelnuts in my pantry. So I took the hazelnuts, I threw them in my food processor, and I got them just shy of hazelnut butter. You don't want to get it to the point where it's turning into peanut butter or nut butter. But about this texture was great. And it worked beautifully. So if you've got nuts hanging around in your pantry and you don't want to go buy a separate almond flour, nut flour, you don't have to. This happens to be hazelnut meal because that's what was at the store where I was yesterday. So I've made a sub here. This is hazelnut meal instead of almond meal. Whatever kind of nuts you like is going to work great. All right, and then a word about our lemon. So I needed to leave my, there's gonna be the tiniest bit of ginger flavor in here. Okay, so almost every time I cook with lemons, I am going to take that extra flavor boost and zest that lemon because it's just turns up the volume on a little bit more. There's no reason not to use it or to waste it. So I'm always just gonna, almost always, I can probably think of some applications where I might not, but zest that lemon, and I'm just sort of spinning it in a spiral as I go down to make sure that I'm covering everything. You don't want to go so deep that you're getting into the white pith because that is not so flavorful. Well, it has a flavor, it's bitter. So we want to stay on this really aromatic yellow skin part, and this microplane tool is a great thing for that. Okay, so when it comes to volumes, lemons have different amount of juice. If you want to maximize the amount of juice that you're going to get out of your lemon, this is a great way to do it, right? Give it a roll. And then what we need, it says on there 1 to 2 tablespoons of water. That is because it's going to depend on how much juice is in our lemon. So I'm going to juice this lemon into my measuring cup. And then I'm going to fill it up until I get to 1/4 cup total between the lemon juice and the water. And it looks like we're probably 3/4 of the way there on this particular lemon. All right, so we're going to bring this up. All right, so we've got 1/4 cup total liquid. Spoon, come back. Okay. Talk about eggs. You could throw the eggs right in there, but you're just going to have a better, more even mixture if you, looks like there's some herbs in here. If you beat your eggs up first, you can use a whisk. I often find that using a fork is just as easy as using a whisk. Sometimes maybe even I feel like maybe I have more control, but it doesn't really matter. Use what you like.
About the protein sources in this dish?
I have not, but you want to point some of them out for me?
Sure. So with these quiche muffins, I love them because obviously we know eggs are protein. Usually one egg has about 6 grams of protein in it, one medium to large egg. But there's also cottage cheese in here, which is another great source of protein. So that's taking this muffin to the next level. And then almond flour actually has a little bit of protein as well. Certainly more than regular flour, which you could use, but it would just take the protein content down a little bit in this recipe.
Right. So the other thing I like about them is, you know, the almonds are adding a source of good fat in there that is going to help you stay full, which is really nice as well. A little bit longer. So yeah, I love cooking with nuts in a lot of ways. All right, so I'm just giving this sort of a loose mixture, trying to get everything incorporated. So let's talk a little bit about herbs and seasonings in here. You could stop here, right? And you could do this, and you've got the flavor of the cottage cheese, and you've got the flavor of the Parmesan, you got a little salt in there. You're great. This is delicious as is. We got lemon in here. All good. If you wanted to omit the lemon, you could just straight do 1/4 cup of water. Delicious. Recipe calls for 1/3 cup of finely chopped herbs. I made 2 batches of these last night so that we had plenty for today, and used chives and fresh chives, fresh thyme, and oregano, and left them in my kitchen this morning. So for this, so two of my batches have those exact herbs in there. So then I arrived here today without my fresh herbs, but there was a leftover basil plant that I picked everything I could off of that little basil plant. That was probably about a tablespoon of basil. Let's see, I wrote down what I put in here because I knew you guys were going to be like, don't just make something up, have it be delicious, and then not tell us.
For the people here on Thursday, remember Chef Mike said, let's see if you can keep the basil plant alive, Lauren.
It was...
I kept 1/3 of it alive.
True.
Put it in a beautiful planter right there on the shelf. And if you look up a couple feet, there's a vent. And I just fried it over the weekend.
Right. Well, even...
Lesson in herbs. He said to put it by a window. I said by a window, but he didn't say window without
a heating vent. Right. I mean, basil likes warm weather, but also it likes enough moisture. So even some of those dry, crumbly leaves just crumbled right into here. Okay, so could you use dry herbs in this recipe? Yes. And also, I have a personal opinion about dry herbs that for me, you just have to use them sparingly because they can sometimes have a bit of a sort of like dusty, dry flavor. So I did use half a teaspoon of thyme, half a teaspoon of dry oregano. I also looked around because I was like, what do I have? What do I have? I don't have time to go to the store. But our white winter salad has fennel in it, and these fennel fronds at the top have a nice, fresh green flavor, so chopped up some fennel fronds. Another thing that inspired me was the first time I made this recipe. I have this seasoning blend at home that's like ranch dressing flavored seasoning. So borrowing from that, I threw onion powder in here. I threw garlic powder in here. So basically, garlic powder, onion powder, coriander, dry thyme, dry oregano, half a teaspoon of all of those things. Then I probably had about a tablespoon of fresh basil and about a tablespoon of fennel tops. So we'll find out, y'all. We can like chop these up into quarters and compare them to the other ones. We'll see how it goes. Now, other ideas. Chopped up olives would be great in here. The original recipe this is based on had sun-dried tomatoes in it. The sky is the limit, folks. This is a palette for you to play, a playground for you to play with. So experiment, make them different every time, or if you find a combination that you like, stick with it. And we can all judge later if my improvisation worked well or not. So we just want to make sure that this is stirred in and incorporated. Another thing I'll point out about the volume of this is that I'm looking at this muffin tin right here, and I can tell you already that it is larger than the spaces are larger than my muffin tin at home. So the recipe, and I would say this one is pretty standard. I think mine at home is small. There's a little fleck of garlic skin in there. If you have a muffin pan that is about this size, pretty standard looking, I would say fill these about 3/4 of the way full. But again, you can, if you want to make a bigger one, fill them more. If you use this size muffin tin, and we'll see how far it goes. I'm going to expect that it's going to get me to 8. And I just like to use a measuring cup. They do rise up a little bit, but even if you filled them all the way to the brim, you're not going to end up with like a spillover situation. Yeah, this is going to get me 8. All right. Yeah, the first time I ever made these, I thought, they're going to ask me if you can freeze them, so I better try to see if you can freeze them. And I was real skeptical. And pleasantly surprised.
Did you use fresh garlic?
Absolutely. For sure. For sure. Again, if you're in the neighborhood of 1/3 cup of extra stuff, you know, fresh garlic and herbs and whatever, you're probably going to be, that's just a good starting point, right? You might find that you like it. They're pretty adaptable. They're not as precious in terms of the volumes as some baking things. Now, if you want to hold back some of the herbs to put on top, that's a nice, fine idea as well. We were a little limited in our available herbs today, so. But, you know, I just like to model for you guys improvising and how I did that on purpose so you guys could see that it's okay if everything's not the way you planned. All right, so these are going to go in the oven for 30 minutes. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Great. All right, let's switch gears and get into soup. I think because I already woke it up once, Lauren, it's happy with me right now.
It is? Good.
Yeah. All right, so this soup is okay, so when it comes to the volumes here on the soup, this soup as written makes about a quart. That's 4 cups of soup. But as you'll see today, I'm going to quadruple it, so you can grow it just fine. You can make more of it. Like I said, it freezes really well. All right, so oats. I went ahead and soaked my oats in some hot water. That just sort of gives them an extra start. You're probably going to ask me what kind of oats you can use. This is a combination of just standard old-fashioned rolled oats and then also some quick cooking oats because that's what was in the pantry. I would not recommend steel-cut oats for this application because they're just not going to blend down as well. So the difference between oats are a grain, of course. When they grow on the plant, they look a little bit more like a wheat berry or even like a rice grain almost, but a little fatter. So steel-cut oats, all they did to them was take that grain and chop it up, right? And so it'll still cook and expand, and as you know, they take a good bit longer to cook. Rolled oats, they have not chopped them up, but they've rolled them to smash them flat, right? And then quick cooking oats, they sometimes do a combination of steaming them and then drying them back out, or sometimes they roll them, chop them up a little bit, steam them, dry them back out. And all of that is fine. They're all good and fine. Other than steel-cut oats are not going to give you that sort of creamy application. It's going to take a lot longer to get there. So I gave them a head start by going ahead and soaking them in some hot water. I'm going to preheat. I got the olive oil. We're going to heat it over medium heat. And then you could use another oil if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and get these carrots in there. So these carrots, as you saw, are not chopped super finely because that takes a long time. And if you're going to turn around and put an immersion blender in it or put it in the blender like we're going to do, why waste your time chopping unless you find that to be very therapeutic? I do not. I did, another word about carrots is I chose not to peel my carrots. I normally don't peel my carrots. I did, however, wash them really well. So while I cut the tops off, because sometimes the tops have a little bit of more dirt around them, so I cut the tops off and I gave them a good wash. So washing vegetables, really important, right? I actually learned that in microbiology in college, that when you are washing your hands and rubbing them, that is a form of disinfection known as mechanical disinfection. Literally, you are rubbing some of the stuff off, and that actually has an effect. So when something like carrots, if I'm washing them under the sink, I'm just going to give them a little, massage, right, with my hands. And that's just going to contribute to mechanical disinfection. Now you learned a microbiology term. Okay, so we're going to get our carrots a little bit of a head start here. Sometimes I will also choose to give a rough peel to some vegetables. Like if it seemed like there was a little crevice in there that just was hiding some dirt you couldn't get out, giving it a quick, right? Or sometimes with potatoes, if I don't want to fully peel them, I might knock the eyes off if it seems like there's junk in there or if they've gotten a little sprouty or something. So sometimes I do a partial peel, if you will. Okay, so to this soup, we're going to add some onion. I went ahead and chopped up one. I do always like to demonstrate how to cut an onion. So to get started, we're going to cut it root to stem in half. When you're cutting vegetables, it's nice to get yourself a flat surface as soon as possible. Then I'm going to peel back the top layer. I realize my soup's a little loud over here. I'm trying to project over it. We're going to peel back the top layer. Some onions are easier than others to do this. There we go. But I like to leave it on because it creates a little handle. So I'm going to cut this little papery bit off right here. And then I'm going to sort of rainbow slices around the top of it. So I'm going to slightly angle my knife as I go so that I went around it. And then we're going to turn it, and now we've just automatically got a really nice dice. Now, if you wanted to get, so you can sort of see how big those pieces are, right? A nice chop. If you wanted to get to a mince, you could somewhat start by making your slices closer together, but usually I then am just going to take the pile and go at it like this. Again, we're going to blend all this up, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that today. Get this in there as well.
I also wanted to circle back to the oats. I think it's so great that we're adding that. I've never seen this in a soup, but when you're going through treatment or afterwards, if you're still having a lot of difficulty swallowing, or if it's easier to get your nutrition in through liquids for whatever reason, it's less, less chewing, it's honestly less tiring, and you're making a lot of smoothies, that's another great option. You can also add oats to smoothies to thicken that up and to give you some extra carbohydrates. So that's something else to consider using that for.
I put oats in my kids' breakfast smoothies all the time just to get a little more in there. Yeah. Sorry. So for oatsian smoothies, yeah. So I just throw them in there with it. Now, if you find that they're maybe not as smooth as you want, putting the oats in first and then your liquid ingredients and give it a minute or two, they'll loosen up pretty fast. Because you're right, sometimes especially if you're using frozen fruit in your smoothie, they might not loosen up as fast as you want. So a couple minute head start is usually going to get the job done. All right, so this is a lot of carrots. They're really all right, so we got our onion in there. All right, so then we're going to add our ginger. So ginger is something that, again, for a food safety standpoint, you should scrub, but you don't have to peel. But I do find that the ginger flavor is just a little bit more clear tasting and less muddy if I peel it. So that's just more of a personal choice. Also, you can take the ginger and chop it up and mince it like you would garlic, but I like to use a microplane just to get it really fine. I like that it incorporates into the soup in that way. So we're going to dump that in there. And then garlic. Did I save back some garlic? I'm going to save back some garlic because I need just a little bit for our salad, so you'll hang out there. And then the rest of our garlic will go in here. All right, our recipe calls for thyme. It's in my refrigerator at home. And I hesitate to put dry thyme in this, so we're going to omit it today. But it is real nice if you've got fresh thyme. All right, here we go. So now we are going to add our liquid ingredients. So this is white wine vinegar. Other vinegars would work as well, sherry vinegar, apple cider vinegar, rice wine vinegar. Rice wine vinegar would probably be really nice with the ginger. So plain old distilled vinegar, lemon juice would be a great direction to go as well. If you got a glass of white wine hanging out in a bottle that you didn't finish off, that's a fine option to add a little bit of acidic ingredient. I do find in soups, when you're seasoning them, that sure you want to pay attention to the salt, but before I go for salt, I usually first think about whether it needs an acidic ingredient and to get that acid balanced. All right, this was the biggest container I had for the amount of vegetable stock that I needed, so I don't usually need so many quarts of vegetable stock, but we're gonna dump this in here, and I used a better than bouillon, sort of. All right, we're also gonna take the heat up on our pot and try to get it to a nice boil. And then once it comes up to a boil, we'll turn it back down to a simmer. And I'm going to add my soaked oats. So now we've just got everything in there. I have not added any additional salt at this time because the stock has salt in it. So we're going to see how this goes, and we'll check in with it in a little bit. All right. So one thing that just occurred to me is the muffins I made last night are still in the refrigerator. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out so we can make sure they get warmed. Here's what they look right out of the refrigerator. One other point I want to make is that the recipe says that you can line the pan with paper muffin tins, and you can, and also you can not. If you choose not to use the muffin tins, you should make sure that you're fairly generous with lubricating that muffin tin with oil. So I took olive oil and just took a paper towel and wiped it earlier. Spray works great. We'll see how these go when they come out. Typically, I'm going to want to leave them in the muffin tin for just a little while, and then run a paring knife around the outside, and then kind of gently take a spoon, and they tend to flip out okay. I put the other ugly ones down here, so some of them have ugly little behinds. You're still delicious. Okay, so we'll get those ready to go in that oven to just warm them through when we're done. All right, so that's coming up. Let's switch gears and get into our salad. All right, I can't remember where I came across the idea for this or what made me think of this, or maybe I was just thinking about winter salads. Here's all of our goods for this. Let's just line everything up. So, but anyway, I came across this and I thought, you know, dietitians, we love to talk about dark green leafy vegetables and colorful vegetables, and those things are important and delicious. And it really is good to have a wide variety, but I thought that doesn't mean that white vegetables shouldn't sometimes also get to have some fun and be included, because they have value as well. So I kind of liked the idea of something that was kind of monochromatic. So the vegetables and fruits that you include in this, again, you can go in a lot of different directions here. Today I have Chosen cauliflower, fennel, and I was going to show you how I like to chop up fennel. Belgian endive, tomato, depends on if you're feeling fancy or not. And it's just, again, like has a nice crunch and crispness to it. Again, all of the vegetable component to this is optional and variable. Somebody earlier, turnips, rutabagas, daikon radish, you go wild. Today I'm also using golden raisins, but fresh green grapes would be fun. Pear is nice, apple would be great too. So yeah, just have fun with it and experiment. Take this out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get all of our vegetables prepped up. So I did a fair amount of that earlier. But fennel, I want to talk about fennel bulb. I love fennel. I think it's really versatile. Some people get a little scared of it because they're like, oh, I don't like licorice. And I personally don't like licorice either, but it has a little bit of an anise flavor, but I think it is so subtle when you mix it and pair it with other things. I've chosen to sort of chop it up in a style that has a big crunch. Another option is to take a vegetable peeler and peel it so you have just like a paper thin slice, which just gives you a different textural experience. Of course, fennel is a bulb, so this is 1/4 of it. Inside there is this hard core that's not so tasty to chomp on, or just requires a lot of chewing. So I usually am going to half it, and then I'm going to cut that bit right out. That is what's holding all these pieces together, so sometimes you have to put the puzzle pieces back together. All right, so I'm going to give it a crossways slice, and then just go down the way. Then you've got your fennel chunks here. Cabbage.
And there are some other ones. But those are great to get in for variety and for those specific types as well.
What was the amount of that? The different vegetables?
It's 4 to 6 servings of these, which is usually half a cup of cooked vegetable. And usually the cruciferous ones are being cooked, unless you love like raw broccoli and things like that. But usually they're cooked.
Okay, so I've chosen pear today. If you're just going to eat a pear out of hand, you often want to find that like perfect right? Like you don't want it to go too far. It's like perfect for a day, right? Where it's just tender enough. For this salad, I would say err on the side of more firm because we want to maximize that crunch. So I am just quartering and slicing.
It's perfect if you started to cut it into a pear that you thought you could just regularly eat and it's not quite ready.
Then it's time to make salad. Right. All right, so. All right, that one's already quartered. It's going to take some chop time. Savannah, what do you got to fill? Go to commercial break.
Commercial break, what are you chopping?
A pear.
Filling in the Zoom class. Pears, great source of fiber. It keeps leaving the skin on, which is where you're getting that. Any fruit or vegetable that has skin or seeds is usually going to be a higher fiber fruit or vegetable.
Ooh, but let's talk for a minute about making your own applesauce. It's crazy easy, you guys. Yeah, it's as easy as taking apples, chopping them, throwing them in a pot, and adding an immersion blender. Didn't have to peel it, didn't have to do anything. And it's delicious, and it freezes well, and it makes big batches, and you don't have to add any sweetener to it. You could get fun with it and add cinnamon or vanilla or whatever other stuff. But when apples are in season, if you go to a farmer's market and they have a discount on the scratch and dent fruit, get yourself a big old batch of, bag of apples, chop them up roughly, throw them in a pot, 20, 30 minutes later, stick your immersion blend in there, applesauce.
Can you make pear sauce?
Pear sauce, peach sauce, strawberry, preserve-y sort of sauce. So when fruit is like that in season, now, if I'm doing something in a summer month with strawberries or with peaches, didn't mean to throw a pear stem in there, I will chuck an apple into it because apples and pears are really high in pectin, and that is has a thickening property to it that's going to make your strawberry or peach sauce thicker instead of more loose and soupy. And if you're making like a jam or jelly or preserve or something with pectin, all of those recipes have you put an insane amount of sugar. It's so much sugar if you've ever made your own. So I don't preserve it, but scratch and dent peaches, chop them up, throw them in there with a chopped up apple, blend it all together. Again, don't have to peel the peach either. Don't have to peel anything. So it's so easy. We should do that in the summertime.
And are you using that as like a snack on its own, or are you putting it on top of something?
My kids will just eat bowls of it, but it's great on toast. It's great stirred into plain yogurt. It's great with baked goods. Yeah, it's great with a spoon. Okay. Oh, our soup is up, and so we're gonna turn you down a little bit because now we're getting into boil territory. Just give it a little stir every now and then. We are smelling good. That's gonna be tasty. All right. All right, so we got all of our vegetables prepped and chopped up. I keep hiding my microplane from myself. Here we go. All right, so generally when I make salads, I like to build my salad dressing in the bowl I'm then going to toss things in or make things in. It just sort of saves a dish. So once again, I'm going to build my recipe in here. I've got everything sort of like tossed together. I am going to go ahead, zest this, and give this a little extra advanced lemon juice treatment and a little sprinkle of salt. That's just going to give it a head start. But I'm going to go ahead and zest my lemon into this massive bowl. Lauren, you might be eating white winter salad all week. Or we'll see. You guys, we might devour it all.
Well, they don't want fiber, right?
Yes.
Not too much fiber.
The perfect amount of fiber for every person and individual here. That is how good I am with recipe and meal planning. Okay.
I would say fiber needs to vary a lot for everyone. Some people need lower fiber, or they might need the lower fiber clearly. But so if you need lower fiber, you might want to stay away from the raw vegetables and the salads. But something like the soup would be great. It's going to be a lot easier to digest as well, since the more fibrous parts of it have been blended. Or you can leave out like maybe the onion if that's something that you know is going to cause an issue. Either replace that with something else or just go without that portion.
I think that's a really good point in that Obviously, there's variability from person to person and what their needs are. I think you'll also find that sometimes there's variability throughout one course of treatment with what your own personal needs are. And so something that worked for you yesterday or last week or last cycle may not be working for you this time. And so just knowing that, adapting and trying different things is a good sort of mindset to go into with. All right, we're just going to give these a little, make sure the lemon juice got all in there. All right, you, down lower. We're going to try to get this to a gentle simmer. I heard somebody say that you just want the pot like sort of with some burbles and gurgles here and there, low simmer. Kind of, I still have my foot. All right, give me a second to wash this real quick.
It usually does help, but I would say if you're having a hard time with the raw apple, you might just want to peel it and then cook it like a baked apple. And you can bake it with the skin on and kind of scoop the apple part out if it gets soft enough. That would probably be best. I know like the skin of potato, the skin of apple, even if it is cooked, it is hard to mechanically like chew and break down really, really well, which also helps the digestion process. That'd be my recommendation, is you might just want to skip out on the peel for now.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of garlic in this salad dressing, and what I like to do with garlic in salad dressing is, first of all, a little goes a long way if you're not going to cook the garlic, right? It can get spicy, it can get overwhelming. Also, biting on a chunk of raw garlic that's kind of big like that is not really what I want to do. So I like to get it, minced up a little bit. Then I'll give a little sprinkle of salt on top of it. And then I'm going to start mincing it. And then after I've gotten a good way into the mince, I'm going to start taking the side of my knife, almost like a palette knife, and kind of giving it a squish. And because that salt is on there, it's going to let the garlic is going to start getting real juicy. And so then you're going to end up more with like a paste. And that, there's a tiny bit of skin in here. These, you know how sometimes you get garlic heads that just peel so beautifully, and some you're like, you got to work for it. This was a work for it day. I worked for every one of these cloves, y'all. But I did it for you, and I did it with love. I didn't resent it at all.
This little technique you're doing, it really is quite a game changer, especially if you've done one of Chef Kip's vinaigrettes. Gosh, it makes such a big difference, and you can just really
Right,
kind
so.
of get that taste. I've done it.
Yeah.
Really impressed with how nice
Yeah.
it is.
I learned this at a dietetic association conference, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics it was called, from Virginia Willis, who's a Southern chef. And she did a demonstration, and she showed me that years ago, early in my career, and I've never looked back. All right, time out here. My muffin timer is going off. Oh, look at these. Gorgeous, right? So we're going to give these just a minute to the pan to cool a little bit, and then we'll pop them out of there. But those look good. All right, so we got a little bit of lemon zest in here. I'm going to, because again, volumes are not exactly the same with this larger amount, but I'm going to go ahead and we've got lemon juice here, but I'm going to add a little bit more in our dressing. Again, the dressing is a really good starting point, but never be afraid to taste and adjust. Make it the way you like it. Do a little black pepper. And then we're going to get half a cup of whole milk yogurt. I might make some extra dressing. Again, if you have low-fat yogurt, that's fine. If you have no-fat yogurt, that's fine.
The reason you picked the fat yogurt over Greek yogurt?
Yeah, so the difference between regular yogurt and Greek yogurt is that they put the yogurt in cheesecloth or some other sort of straining mechanism, and they strained a lot of the whey out of it. And so for this application where I want it to be thinner anyway, to sort of thin it out into a dressing, I'm just going to have to add liquid back to it to get there. So that's, but if you had Greek yogurt on it, you just know that you might have to add a little bit more liquid to get it to the consistency that you want. All right, I'm going to save just going to eyeball measure the mayonnaise here. There we go. And we got our garlic in there. We're going to give it a little teaspoon of honey in here. When I made it the first time, I remember thinking, I want just a touch more sweetness in it. Used up all my spoons. We're going to honey with a fork. All right. And then, once we've got this where we want, there's a fennel frond on the floor that almost took me out. Not today. I know, right? It's like a act where you guys are like, ooh, ah, daring. Yeah. So I tell people at work sometimes, I work at Emory University Hospital, and I tell them when I orient new folks to the safety of the kitchen, I'm like, listen, we're not doing brain surgery back there, but we have knives, flame, gas, steam, metal pans coming out of 500-degree ovens, slippery floors. Gotta look alive. All right, so yeah, this is about the consistency that we're looking for here. But I am gonna give it a taste to make sure that we've got it where we want it. Yeah, nailed it the first time. All right, so to finish this out, it's really just a matter of getting everything in here. The last thing we haven't talked about is a little bit of feta. I'm going to crumble that on top at the end, but we're going to get our vegetables in here and give them a good toss. Sort of get everybody separated out. These endive leaves will sometimes like to spoon each other. They're very romantic. That's right, exactly.
Was anyone here a couple, or it was December when we did the olive oil cake?
The Thanksgiving.
So I decided to make one of my 2024 resolutions, perfecting an olive oil cake. But I had left Kip's recipe here at work, and I was at my parents' house, so I tried a different one, which was not as good, but much better. But speaking of danger, I burned the top of my hand, like tasting, or not tasting, testing if it was cooked all the way. So don't do what I did. Probably halfway burned through by now.
I've made that cake so many times. If you're ever needing to Google it, I think Food 52 has the recipe. I didn't modify it at all. Or Maialino was a restaurant in New York, an Italian restaurant, that it was their recipe that got published. So, yes, Maialino, just Google it, that's the recipe. And I think their recipe has Grand Marnier in it, and I often don't have Grand Marnier, so I just up the orange juice. Okay, so I think this is looking, I'm gonna hold off on adding the rest of that cauliflower because I think we've got a good amount going on here for the amount of salad dressing we have. And I did know, when I made this for myself at home, I looked for the teeny tiniest little cutest cauliflower I could find. And then yesterday I was like, which is the biggest cauliflower? That was a lot of cauliflower. All right, so we're gonna give this a little taste again and adjust for seasoning. See if, once we've got everybody together, see if I can get a bite with all the right stuff. Yum, good job. We're gonna finish with a little bit of feta. That's the last little bit. And then we'll check on our soup. Again, the feta could be left out if you wanted. I like the combination of the pear and the raisin, sort of a salty cheese and fruit. Pleases me. So we'll just take a hunk of this. This feta from DeKalb Farmers Market is so good. It's fine to get sort of a pre-crumbled, but the one that's like in the way, it's so, so tasty. Right, so white on white on white. I'm out here as a dietitian telling you to eat monochromatic food. I stand by it.
When did you want to put your other muffins in the oven?
Thank you for that reminder. I will. Yeah, what I think we should do is turn the oven off and put them in there as the oven is cooling so that we don't re-cook them. I would take the plastic lid off. Yep. Thank you for the reminder. All right, we're gonna toss this around. I'm gonna go ahead just to make sure everybody here gets a little endive experience. Break these up a little bit so they're more evenly distributed.
Gonna get rid of the danger objects?
Thank you. Safety inspector, OSHA compliant now.
You have a couple.
Right, I also have, this is one I have to continually watch out for. I'm just the right height for that to give me a head injury. All right, so in just a second, I'm gonna check on the tenderness of our soup, see where it's at. Oh yeah, that is pleasing me.
Not that we need anything else white to add to this, but how would like white beans do for a little extra?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you were in the room when I first presented this and talked about it, but when I have this in the fridge, it's gonna last for a good 5 days or so. The nuts might get a little bit soft, you might wanna hold those back, but I've had leftovers and I've popped open a can of tuna. I've gotten real obsessed lately with I'm not a big Trader Joe's person, but Trader Joe's smoked trout in the can. It's like smoked and in olive oil. Y'all, I stand behind it. It is so good. So popped open a can of that trout and ate it with this salad, and it was delicious. So yeah, white beans, chuck those in there. I'm absolutely here for it. All right, let's see. So our carrots are getting to Tendertown. Almost. I could use a little bit. Give it a little bit more heat. Okay, so for our muffins.
What I was thinking for our muffins is, since we have 8, give everyone half of one of these and
Half of one of
these,
those.
so
Yep, you can compare and contrast. Fresh out of the oven versus reheated. Also my different herb combination. Now, these guys are either going to make me look like I really know what I'm doing, or they're going to fight me like last night. Again, the first time I made them, they popped out no problem.
Lauren, is the olive oil cake recipe on the CSC website? Okay.
That's a good question. So any of our old recipes are always listed on our website, and if they're not, I always have a bunch of old printouts if you're here in person, or you can email me, and I'm happy to give you the digital copy.
Copies. I can't remember where I've gone. How are we doing on time? Okay.
You want me to do that, and you can do soup though?
Well, soup still needs a little bit more time. Yeah. All right, so after I've done that, I like to sort of see if I can get a spoon underneath them. Of course, these really stuck bad today. Muffin liners would be a way to not deal with that. It's okay.
I wouldn't call it bad.
Oh, no, never.
I would say.
They're just not going to win like a beauty. Just look at them this way.
Yeah. Everyone likes the top anyway.
Right. It is the best part.
I'm not offended.
I oiled up the pan pretty generously, but, I also don't know this pan as well. Now I know you, pan. I got feelings about you, pan. I'm going to buy muffin liners next time. They're still mostly coming out. They're just not the, perfectly smooth bottoms. All right, if you want to chop those in half, and then I'm going to go ahead, just so I don't forget, we're going to get some of our salad here on the plate for our show plate. Ooh, we got a whole collection of raisins that somebody was going to get a big old raisin bite. All right, and then I'll put that over here when we've got a little muffin we can stick on there. All right, soup. All right, what I'm going to do is, because I cannot get all of this soup in that blender at one time, I'm going to blend up one batch worth. Taste, make sure it's got enough salt. And then we'll bowl it up, and then we will, I'll blend up the rest of them after we finish the video call. There is a liquid measuring cup right here. All right, so, whoop. Got into my max liquid line. I was telling Q earlier about a time when someone I was cooking with put some saag, we were making saag paneer, the Indian dish, and blended spinach and the hot spinach and the thing, and the lid blew off and spinach all over the kitchen. And when kitchen disasters happen like that, to me, I cannot stop laughing. The person who did that was very upset with the whole situation. I'm sure he thought that I was laughing at him, but I really was not. I just doubled over could not stop laughing at the situation because it just felt so ridiculous. All right, let's blend. Yum. I did it again, y'all. Now, notice I did not add additional salt. Remember, we were going to wait and see on the salt because what I used today was this vegetable better than bouillon, and it's got a fair amount of salt in it. So when you're using a pre-prepared stock, sometimes when I make my own stock at home, and I did chicken stock here one time, I will wait to salt it until I'm making whatever I'm going to make to sort of see how it goes. All right, so I'm going to pour this up. All right, we'll stick that right out there. There's our fun white winter salad, carrot ginger soup.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org, or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on upcoming programs.